Thanks for joining me. This is Danny Cardwell from ThoughtWrestler.blogspot.com, and would have taken some time to put a little bit more production into this, but I was a little upset when I saw on the news this morning there's going to be a press conference at 11 o'clock confirming that the officer that was thought that was killed outside of Chicago was indeed a suicide, Officer Gliniewicz. And, you know, the family, I'm sorry that the family has to have their bad news compounded even more. It's always tough to lose a loved one, and I guess suicide will make it a little harder. But I want to talk about the media and this continued effort to murder the Black Lives Matter movement. It bothers me that every officer that has been killed in the line of duty has been, at some point or another, media figures have tried to link. Hey, good morning to you too, Atomic Dog. Have tried to link the deaths to the Black Lives Matter movement, and the fact that some people are actually calling for the Black Lives Matters movement to be listed as a terrorist organization or on the watch list, FBI watch list, is disheartening. On my anniversary, April 26th, my wife didn't get a trip to a nice, beautiful place. If you go to April 26th and you realize what was going on in Baltimore at the time, that's where my wife got to spend her anniversary. We were in the city. We were in Northern Virginia. We were in D.C. We were in Baltimore. I have friends. My uncle is a prominent bishop in Maryland, and we have friends that were there outside with people trying to, bring rest to the community. We had an incident in Charlottesville last year, a student that was beat up by police. One of the bishops that led the peaceful rallies there is a personal friend of mine. I mean, someone that I see a couple times a year, and we get along with each other real well. So when people attempt to smear the whole movement, it's really sad that good people and good intentions get slandered that way. My pastor at my church, I'm a deacon at Piney Grove Baptist Church, and I run our youth outlook and ministry services. But our pastor, marched in the '60s. His first two arrests came in North Carolina at student sit-ins. He worked with Fannie Lou Hamer. There are people who have a long line of 30, 40-year history of peacefully assembling and protesting the injustices in our society, and to lump all of them in with some sort of terrorist movie. The sheriff David Clark, I've made videos about him before, but said that he wouldn't be surprised if Black Lives Matter links up with ISIS to commit terrorist attacks inside the country. And it just blows my mind how useful idiots will say anything to get on TV. And there's nothing that the gentlemen, those far-right conservative, there's nothing they won't say to demean or diminish, this movement. And, we need to stand up to this. In the next hour, that press conference is going to be at 11 o'clock. And what you'll hear is that, the officer's death will be ruled a suicide. But what you won't hear is those reactionaries on the right, the Fox News crowd, the radio network crowd. You won't hear those people coming and amending the statements that they made earlier. It was like the officer that was killed in Houston. I believe his name was Officer Groforth. He was killed by a black man, shot, 14, 15 times. It turned out that this guy had a long history of mental illness, had been a couple times against his own will detained and held in psychiatric treatment facilities, and but they still attempted to link his murder to this movement. And so if there are people out there watching this video that are part of Black Lives Matter movement, if you're just tangentially related, or if you know someone there, don't allow people to slander you and tell lies about you. Don't allow this movement to die. Don't allow external forces to put themselves in position in your lives where you don't speak out against injustices. No one in Black Lives Matter is calling for the death of any officer. We had the Yahoos in Minnesota, and and for real, I'm not even too sure if you know anything about COINTELPRO and the counterintelligence program. I'm not even too sure that some of those weren't plants. I mean, there's always inside of every organic movement for change. There's always, especially when there's no hierarchy, when there's no structural hierarchy, there's always opportunity for people to, circumvent the movement. And so that one instance, what they did is, I agree with you, Atomic Dog, but what they did, that one movement, what they did was set back tens of thousands of people, who were involved in the movement. I mean, and I liken it to, I do not know Maya Angelou. I've read her work. I would have loved to have met her, but I do not know. Never knew Maya Angelou. But what that movement did was, allowed those that seek to discredit the greater movement. It gave them fodder. It gave them video and cannon fodder to use, as if that group of individuals speaks for everyone. What I don't, and this is what you'll notice though, is if you can look at, you go back a couple weeks and look at coverage, there were probably 5 to 10 times more stories about the small gathering in Minnesota that did the chant, pigs in a blanket fry 'em like bacon. There was 5 to 10 times more media coverage of that than it was the Million Man March, the Justice or Else March, which my cousin Brian was at, and I wasn't able to go. I wanted to go. I couldn't be there. I just couldn't be there. But 5 to 10 times the media coverage. Belinda 214. The sheriff's department will hold a press conference at 11. It'll be covered on some of the cable news agencies. Fox Lake, Illinois, the sheriff had made statements linking what they thought was the murder to Black Lives Matter movement. He made a very powerful statement, and I can't find it. I don't have the notes here, but to sum it up, he basically said, let's drop this Black Lives Matter and just understand all lives matter. This is going too far. This rhetoric is causing people to act. So, even the sheriff, and I doubt that he will, go back and amend his statement, but I sincerely appreciate those of you that watched. I'm fairly new at this, but I have, I write often editorials and op-eds for local papers where I'm from. Yeah, you're right. And you can check out the blog, thoughtwrestler.blogspot.com. I certainly appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Peace.